Greetings and salutations everyone, I'm Mechatronics and this is a new Let's Try project. I don't think that if anyone looked at my Steam hours then they'd know that I spend way too long on base builder games like this. And well, I figured why not have a bit of a minor project where I show off how I like to go about playing this game. Oxygen not included is definitely unique for a base builder because it's pretty hands-off, but also it's very in-depth with its thermodynamics. And that makes it sound like I'm making the game sound a lot more complicated than it is. No, this game actually gets very complex. And yet it's somehow also simple. So, first of all, we're starting in survival mode. Stay on your toes and one step ahead of this unforgiving world. One slip up could bring your colony crashing down. Set it to the DLC mode of Spaced Out. The starting asteroids are smaller and resources are distributed across the map. It's more emphasis on space travel. And now we select a starting location. So the cluster you pick determines what you start out on and what's going to be an easy reach at the start. Terrania, if you notice, has absolutely nothing interesting about it, and no matter how many times you try to reload this, that's going to stay the same. The way that I see it, Terrania is a good starting location for the fact that, well, it has hatches which are good for ranching for meat. It's a lot harder to get your hands on specific metals for the high level thermodynamics stuff. It always connects to the oily swamp asteroid, which we'll get into what that's like later, but you'll never find oil on this. This is a forest starting asteroid, and the thing about forest is that while it does have easy access to aluminum, it's also got absolutely no algae, which is very important for oxygen production. To make up for it, they give you oxyfern plants, this thing here, and those convert carbon dioxide into oxygen, which sounds like a good replacement, but you need water to feed. If you want to tame those plants for high production, you need dirt and water, and those are actually kind of limited. Until you get into the mid or late game at least. I believe that also means that they're going to connect to the rusty oil asteroid. I think those are saltwater ocean biome, but anyway. I forget the specific name, but this is, well, Quagmyrus, I guess. So this was a new starting biome added for the DLC. It's full of mud, polluted dirt, polluted mud, lots of polluted water. Basically, these are very unstable for building in, and food rots unfortunately quite quickly. But to make up for it, you're going to have an easy time with oxygen because of all the polluted water. It's just going to be very unpleasant oxygen. Also, they're home to plug slugs, which will munch on your metal and remove it from the game irreversibly. Making up for that is that this is also a good place to get cobalt, which is like aluminum. If you make a refined metal out of it, it's great for thermodynamics. But anyway, I want to start with the Alright, as you go further right, the survival chance goes down as each asteroid has its own problems. I believe the thing with this one, although I could be wrong, is that it's very cold, so infectious diseases aren't going to happen, but the problem is that everyone's going to be chilly and it's going to be hard to raise plants. Desolate. I think this one is that there's a lot less of the nice organic resources to rely on. No, this must be the super cold asteroid. Radioactive ocean and flipped. Flipped is an interesting thing because basically it's the Terra asteroid, But instead of having molten lava at the bottom of the asteroid, it has it at the top, making it very hard to escape. So if you're a newcomer, you want to pick one of these ones. And I actually do want to refresh this a few times because I want to have crashed satellites on the oily swamp asteroid, but I also want to make sure I don't have anything like lush core or frozen core, because maybe it was just a coincidence, but I once tried that out just to see what it's like, and it deleted some of the oil production from the asteroid, so I didn't like that. Now then, all that said, we start our new colony, and with every colony you get, well, I'll just talk about it because I'm not going to wait for the loading screen. You get 3 duplicates. You can refresh them as many times as you want. It's going to be much harder to do that in the actual game, so you have to make sure that whoever you pick are very important. We want someone that can dig. We want someone that can research. And we want someone that can ranch, because these are things that I desperately do not want to save scum to get in the game itself. Because I can re-roll and it will always have the selected interest. They'll always have the selected interest. The things that I'm not looking for aren't interests though, it's traits. Red traits are negatives. They're almost always going to be only negatives, although a few of them have positive benefits in them. Green traits are usually always positive, but a few of them have negative aspects to them. And there's specific ones that I want. The example that I can use right now, Grease Monkey. Machinery +3. So some of the traits will increase their stats, or rather they increase their skills along with their interests. Here's the difference. Interest stats are part of their total, so a duplicate can't have a stat higher than 20. But stats that change those, like undiggings, negative excavation, or animal lovers plus husbandry, those don't count towards the total, so I want to try and get specific skills on everyone. And so I have to do a lot of save scumming. I'm sorry. I always want a rancher with animal lover because husbandry is actually very hard to raise. I want to get as high a researching stat as possible. Right, this is what I mean. So gourmet gives them extra cooking skill, +3 cuisine, but it also reduces the food morale bonus, meaning that they're going to have lower morale. It can get a little annoying. Okay, I just got 2 in a row. Certain negative stats you just don't want to deal with ever. Flatulent is one of them because the gnat grass they produce is just atrocious. Allergies I don't really like. Unpracticed artist. Decreased creativity, but increased morale bonus. Bottomless stomach I only accept under very strict circumstances because here's the problem. Okay, quick learner, I have what I want, now just going to keep re-rolling my digger. What was I speaking just a second ago? Okay, the problem is that the absolute worst negative traits, in the original game, they didn't do anything with them. And, well, in the original game, people would just skip over duplicates with those stats entirely. And so, recently, they balanced it out by having them attached that if you get one of the best stats, I would argue that Dress to Impress isn't one of them, but then it'll come accompanying one of the worst stats. And unfortunately, on my digger, I want one of the best positive traits in the game, so it takes a long time to save scum my way to get it. I mean, tempting, but no. Oh man, I've had to save scum a lot longer for this combo. Mechatronics Engineering. This is a tier 3 skill, but it doesn't have morale requirements attached to it. But also, this one is a tier 3 skill, but it can take up to 5 skill points to learn it. So it is definitely worth taking Bottomless Stomach over, even though it means that he's eating enough for half another duplicant. So we embark on the Radical Homestead. Alert! The asteroid we call home has collided with an anomalous planet, decimating our colony. Rebuilding it is of utmost importance. I've detected a new cluster of material-rich asteroids in nearby space. If I can guide the duplicants through the perils of space travel, we could build a colony even bigger and better than before. First thing you do, pause the game. Absolutely. Because time is precious in this game. You aren't going to run out, but the longer you go without doing things right, the worse you are. The way I play this game tends to be that I sort of copy other people's designs point for point. It's maybe not the best thing to do, but the most important thing is that before we finish cycle 1, we need to have access to water, and we need to have a lavatory. Otherwise, well, they're all going to make a big mess. Now, for the case of... hang on. Right, that's as far as I want to build that way. Build the pitcher pump here. The next thing we want to do is turn off researching and decorated. So priorities determine what jobs each duplicant wants to do. The higher the priority, then they'll go after those jobs first before looking at the job priorities themselves. It's kind of complicated stuff. We're probably going to have to go into more detail at a different time. But by changing these stats up here, it determines that any new duplicants that I make, which is about 2.4 cycles away from happening, will also have these. So, Ashkin is our researcher. I want him to absolutely always go for researching first and toggling. After that, operating is the most important thing for him. Eventually we'll make you into a dedicated supplier and builder. I mean a dedicated rancher and farmhand, but until that point, your job is to get everything supplied. So we have supplying, storing, tiding. Life support has the highest stat. Hassan, on the other hand, is going to be our digger and our, well, builder. I always make them into attackers as well, simply because they have the highest excavation skill. And yeah, we actually finished with all that. I'm used to having it on pause for a lot longer than this. Build down, but not too far. Build up, but not too far. We want to build a lavatory. Which means, generally, the best place to put it is directly under the start. Unfortunately, we have a huge lake here, so I can't build the way I usually do for that. One wash basin to clear up the germs, and one toilet. I would build more, but I want this oxalite to die off first. Because yeah, oxygen. It's not included. It's in the name of the game. By going to priorities, I can get them to focus on certain tasks before others. Keep in mind that the priorities tab up here, These will overrun. They first focus on jobs that have more check marks here, and then they look at the numbers you assign. Very important to keep that in mind. And this little plot of dirt here is from someone who was dug up earlier. It's a hatch. It's a wild animal that we can use for food later on, but they also have a tendency to eat whatever's on the floor and turn it into coal. That does have use, but the problem is they're quite happy to eat the things that our duplicants can eat, so I always try to have this food box turned up to high priority so that the storer will keep them from being left around where any hungry hatch could gobble it up. Important thing, when you dig up a material, let's have a look at this right now. This is 587.2 kilograms of coal. It's now 293 kilograms of coal. Digging things up will reduce the amount of the object, which means you want to keep from digging up important materials such as oxalate, which will slowly turn into oxygen. We don't have a good way to produce our own oxygen yet, so yeah, important to not do that, to leave that untouched and to finish on its own. So this area up here, it's got much more important uses in mind than what I have for them. But for now it's just going to be a temporary bedroom. But we don't want to finish that first. The first thing we want to do is to build a lavatory and to build a water pump to fill the wash basin. Because germs. We want to make sure that these people can go to the toilet, and we want to make sure they wash their hands when they leave the toilet. Duplicants are smart, but not quite that smart. They're relying on us to build the base properly for them. Actually, that's the other reason why I always prioritize getting all the food to the ration box immediately, because sometimes your toilet room will have food on the floor and they'll just immediately pick it up and eat it before washing their hands. They're gonna have to sleep on the floor tonight, unfortunately, but I think it's more important that they don't make a mess of themselves, shall we say. Oh, no, no, no! That's not good. I don't want to... We don't want them to... Oh dear. The printing pod is perhaps the most important part of the colony. Even though it doesn't do much too often, we still want to make sure that's never out of order. In fact, if you ever start the game with a nyctophobic duplicant, this could be a problem. We have one sink, two toilets, and they aren't smart enough to wait for their turn at the sink. So yeah, if we go to the germ view, we see that the moment that they finish on there, they're covered in food poisoning germs. He's going to eat, and he's going to walk straight past the sink. Turn him around, send him back. Perfect. Nothing went wrong. Don't expect that to always be the case. It's very easy to miss that. And so day 1, because they don't have any beds, they're just going to find somewhere dark to lie down. If you ever do have the problem of starting with a nyctophobic duplicant, see, usually duplicants need to sleep in the dark. If their sleeping place is bright, then it gives them a poor night's rest. Nyctophobic duplicants are the reverse, where if they sleep somewhere that isn't brightly lit up, then they have a poor night's sleep. What you can do is build a sleeping cot here, and that way the natural light of your printing pod will give them somewhere relaxing to sleep. The downside is that it means that it's a bit harder to turn this area into a dining hall, because, well, maybe we'll get to that later. So, day 2. They're going to work hard on everything, while I'm going to look at doing what I do for every schedule in the game. Basically, I divide the day up into a series of shifts, so that there's always someone hard at work. This is my evening shift. This is my night shift. And whoever is my scientist, I want working on this, unless they have the night owl trait. My scientist is Ashken. And I want to turn shift alarms on. And finally, morning shift. I usually just leave the default schedule, aka my day shift, for the digger, which means that Ren gets the morning shift. I might swap him around if I get a duplicant that would work better in a different time slot, but it's not guaranteed. So, when they finish building this last cot, we should get to see something. Achievement earned. There's quite a lot of achievements in this game. They're all Steam achievements, but they're also earned on a colony basis. And the problem is that there's quite a few of them that can be permanently lost. So, locavore. We need to eat 400,000 kilocalories of food without planting any seeds in plant boxes, farm tiles, or hydroponic farms. And it's not a case of you can destroy them all later and build them and go for the achievement again. No, if you farm any plants, game over. Carnivore. Have duplicants eat 400,000 kilocalories of critter meat before the 100th cycle. This is rough. This is very rough. And in the DLC, it's even harder. Super sustainable. Generate 240,000 kilojoules of power without using coal, nat gas, petrol, or wood generators. That's unfortunate because that cuts out most of the automatic power generators. And where's one other? I feel like there should be another one. Well, all the ones with these yellow stickers on the side are ones that you only have in the DLC. Alright, this is the last one that's permanently missable. Extract uranium from a beta hive without getting stung. I technically have most of these achievements, so I shouldn't need them, but by default I always treat my colonies as going for 100% each time, so yeah, this is going to be a bit slow, and we're going to be aiming for that carnivore achievement above all else. So, I see they've made a nice little bedroom here. Working on getting another one for the next time we have a duplicant out. And I guess the next major building project would be a science lab. So, looking about, I'd say that the best place to stick up a science lab would be over here. I just need to count it out. It's always a good idea to know exactly how you want to build your base before you get too deep in, because it can be a bit tricky to try and undo all the hard work. Or rather, to deconstruct things and then have to build a new for them. Better to just leave the empty room in advance. So, the thing is, this takes power. At the moment we have only one source of power, and thankfully it doesn't invalidate the achievement. It's a hamster wheel that generates electricity. Just click and drag with the wires to put them in place. Keep in mind that it doesn't take the usual raw sandstone materials, it takes copper ore, or aluminium ore, or cobalt ore, depending on where you start. Basically, if it falls under the metal ore category, you use it for your power and for your stations. And I guess I should also bring up, click and drag with the dig tool, and they'll just automatically rush over and start digging everything up for resources. They actually do have kind of cute little animated tutorials for these things. Yeah, you gotta keep in mind that the loop water has to go somewhere. Getting our hands on a research facility first off is probably one of the most important things after you get past day one, because you need to start researching how to make the better stuff ASAP. This oxygen won't last forever, and neither will these water puddles. As you dig out, it expands your view of the area, so yeah, dig more to explore more. I think some people actually aim to have multiple diggers on their first batch of duplicates, and that's fair, but carnivore is a pain in the butt. Because each cycle, unless a duplicant has bottomless stomach, they take 1,000 kilocalories per cycle. Now, if you look at the achievement again, 400,000 kilocalories of critter meat. A single hatch produces, I think it's 2,000. I think it's 2,000 kilograms. No, I'm not sure how much it is, but I know that it produces 3,200 kilocalories of meat, which can be fried into barbecue for 4,000. So basically, it takes 100 hatches worth of meat in order to get the achievement. You have to start working on that as soon as humanly possible. And even then, sometimes it's very close. It's a very close race. In fact, it used to be that they didn't actually tell you how close you were to the achievement, so you had to go into the game files to figure it out. We're hitting the 30-minute mark, and as you can see, Ren's gone to sleep because it is actually his shift's break time. Have to remember to leave the dig order for here so they can get to the rest of this little setup. And we can always tag a muckroot to be uprooted. Muckroots being pre-made food. They're basically pre-packaged food all ready to eat. They can't be replanted. And they taste pretty awful. But the duplicate, they're at least good for meals. If you want to get oxalite out of the way without digging it up and losing part of the mass, just dig all the areas around them and that'll cause them to emit oxygen a lot faster. Incidentally, if you do dig them up completely, then they emit it even faster than that, but they lose half the mass in the process. Or that said, if you don't mind the early game loss of oxygen, and you really should because it is very harsh, you might actually want to build a little storage container in the water and store all of your oxalite in there, because eventually oxalite has an entirely different purpose. All that said, I think that this is probably a moment that we should try to wrap up things because we hit the 30-minute mark. We've got plenty more game to go. We don't have to get through most of it in the first episode. Yeah, I think the next time the day goes by is when we'll just start up our next episode. So, until next time guys, take care. We'll see you all around.